Welcome to James Plays Games. I'm James, and I play games. In late 2016, Watch Dogs 2 was released to critical acclaim, and from the beginning, there was little doubt that I would enjoy it more than the little bit I played of the first game back when it released in 2014. However, in an effort to be as transparent and fair as possible, I decided to give the original a second try, though it wasn't until after the second had come to a close. Today, I'm going to take an in-depth look at the Watch Dogs franchise, and while I know the following might be an unpopular opinion, I would like to invite you to leave a comment discussing your thoughts. Without further ado, we're going to Chicago. Normally, I'm not a fan of the age-old argument that many gamers use when they aren't satisfied with the finished, or unfinished in some cases, product of a title, especially when it has crashed the hype train. Quote, "It's not what we were promised," they say. Well, I'd hate to rain on your parade, buddy, but when it comes to Watch Dogs, what we were shown in the E3 2012 demo was pretty much what we got in the final product. I'm sure that by now, if you haven't angrily X'd out of this, grumbling about how wrong I am, then you might be wondering, but James, we didn't get the hacking wheel, or the mission to take down Joseph DeMarco, or the clever personalities that Aiden and Jordy exhibited, all of which were shown clearly in the demo, to which I say, yes we did, no one cares, and kind of, in that order. In the final game, the hacking wheel was replaced with the weapons gadgets wheel, and the option to hack streetlights, bridges, and steam pipes, among other things, was relegated to a temporary option that appears as you approach streetlights, bridges, steam pipes, etc. If you were steamed about the absence of the mission to take down Joseph DeMarco, I'd like to know why, especially when the dot connection exhibit is an actual place that you have to go to in a mission that takes place in the latter half of the game. Sure, the point of the mission is different, but it's more or less the same thing we saw in the E3 2012 demo. Now, if you're upset about the utter lack of personality among the characters, especially since the demo showcased two interesting, unfamiliar characters, that's actually a fair argument. Aiden Pearce is basically Batman in terms of personality. Not Bruce Wayne, just Batman. In fact, the only character who really left a significant impact on me is Jordy Chin, and he doesn't really appear more than 2 or 3 times in the course of the game, though his voice is heard throughout, so at least he's present. I like the introduction of Raymond Kinney, but that's mostly because of his significant appearance in the latter portion of Watch Dogs 2. He's another memorable personality, and while I haven't played the DLC where you can play as him, it's only a matter of time before I manage to do so, since he might be my favorite character. If you look at Watch Dogs by itself, it's actually not a bad game, but it doesn't really offer anything new. It's your standard revenge story, only in this case you're able to utilize hacking as a means to an end. In fact, I found that while you could get through the entire game without pulling out your gun, it's much easier and faster to just hide behind cover and massacre everyone in sight. While I didn't discover this until after beating the game, there are many games that can be played, and one is extremely reminiscent of one of the last missions of the sequel where you can play as this gigantic mechanical spider. I found this to be one of the more fun things to do after beating the game, especially compared to the repetitive crime fighting and convoy missions. In all honesty, there are a lot of side missions that are just carbon copies of each other, and they take the fun out of completing the game. I want to avoid spoiling any significant plot details for anyone who's planning on picking it up after this video, but I felt while the story wasn't necessarily new, it added plenty of twists that I had a difficult time predicting. There were times when the plot twist just made everything more confusing, but for the most part, I think I figured it out. I may need to read up on the wiki a little more to make sure, however. The story wasn't necessarily new, but it was interesting enough that it kept me thinking about the ways it could possibly end. I wasn't a fan of the idea that hacking, while they marketed it as a revolutionary new concept, wasn't really on the forefront. In fact, it seemed more like a cross between Grand Theft Auto and Assassin's Creed with hacking thrown into the mix. However, to say that what we got wasn't what we were promised with Watch Dogs, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is wholly inaccurate. We could have used a bit more personality from Aiden, but there are reasons for his dark nature, and any real person would probably behave in the same way if they lost what he did in the way that he did. Now, let's take a look at the sequel, which features new characters, new locales, and new experiences. What separates the first Watch Dogs from its sequel is really as simple as this. From the beginning mission of Watch Dogs 2, I knew I would love this game. I never said that about the first entry, despite the fact that I did enjoy it enough to complete it. Marcus's adventures in the San Francisco Bay Area made for a much more enjoyable experience than Aiden's bleak and dreary revenge story, which is shown by the fact that I achieved a platinum trophy. They managed to fix any problems I had with the original, while carving out a brand new experience that will stick with me for years to come. Taking the general cue from Watch Dogs, the sequel is set in the San Francisco Bay Area in the aftermath of Aiden Pearce's digital conquest of Chicago. You're put in the shoes of Marcus Holloway, a young and enthusiastic hacker who dreams of joining the ranks of DedSec. But it's a different chapter of the enigmatic and edgy hacker group that is clearly inspired by Anonymous. Whereas the first game has you searching for who gave the order that killed your niece, the sequel takes things in a much different direction, putting you in charge of taking down the technology conglomerate that is using their CTOS 2.0 software to monitor and steal people's information on a massive scale. It's a more technology-based conflict, and it's only right given that the entire premise of the game surrounds technology. I've never been to the San Francisco Bay Area myself, but from what I can tell, the team at Ubisoft managed to capture the scenery rather well. I've seen a video of someone going to the area in-game where they live in the real world, and the two areas are quite similar. It's got me thinking, if a video game can capture a real-world destination with enough accuracy, what are the chances of games being used as aids for incoming tourists? If I wanted to go to, say, Tokyo, and there was a game like this set in Tokyo with all of the attractions as they were in reality, I could use this tool to become accustomed to the area before I go. I don't know, it could be handy. I also enjoyed the atmosphere of the sequel. It's got this flavor that was desperately needed in the original game. I don't know if it was the vastly different style of music available to listen to as you embark on your hacking adventure, or if it was just the overall brightness in relation to the dreary blue of Chicago, but there was something about Watch Dogs 2's San Francisco that really just struck me. Marcus and the rest of DedSec are real people with real personalities, which were desperately needed in Aiden's world. I would love to see another game with these characters at the forefront, but considering it doesn't look like the sequel had as big of a launch as Ubisoft would have hoped, only time will tell if we'll be getting a third entry in the series. If you ask me, I don't think we really need a new game in the Watch Dogs universe. I feel that if Ubisoft were to make a Watch Dogs 3, I would play and likely enjoy it for what it is, but it's not something I desperately need. I think it's great that you can play the entire second game without touching the first, but I think the biggest problem is that so many people weren't impressed with Aiden Pearce's adventure, they didn't even consider stepping into the shoes of Marcus Holloway, which in my opinion is a big mistake. Imagine what would have happened if players didn't like the overly repetitive nature of Assassin's Creed, and therefore didn't even bother picking up Assassin's Creed 2. They never have met Ezio, and one of gaming's greats wouldn't have had his time to shine. There's too many good things that could be found in Watch Dogs 2 that weren't present in its predecessor to pass this one up. So, in conclusion, if you were on the fence or even slightly curious about playing Watch Dogs 2, I say do it. I pre-ordered it, and I don't regret my decision in the slightest. I like to say that both games have their good things and not so good things, but they're each good for their own reasons. Watch Dogs was a driving, cinematic tale of revenge and regret, while Watch Dogs 2 is just as driving, but it's a story told from a different lens. It's almost like the first game took an approach like, you ruined my life, now I'm gonna leave a trail of blood until I find out who you are, while the sequel took an approach like, you ruined my life, now I'm gonna ruin yours, but I'm gonna have a lot of fun while doing so. Thanks for watching James Plays Games! Now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on Watch Dogs and Watch Dogs 2? Do you agree with my points, or do you think I was being too light on Ubisoft? Let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more videos like this one, subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends to get the discussion going. This has been James Hurd, signing off from Pixelation. I'll see you next time.